We're going to continue now by creating the rear limbs and the small secondary wing that goes right behind it. So I'm turning my image planes back on, and this time I'm looking at the bottom profile. Zoom in and go to the curves tool. Actually, before the curves tool, I want to hide the wings parent layer and create a new one. And I'll name it hind legs. Now we'll go back to the curves tool. And if you remember, 3D Coat keeps in place the last curve you're working with, and we can reuse this. So I'll click apply to whole curve so I can move the entire object. With the last point selected, I'll just click the center of the gizmo to scale the entire limb. Click on an individual point. I want to uncheck apply to whole curve and work with just individual points. I'm still in rotate mode. And I'll go ahead and speed up the playback for a little bit while I tweak these individual points. Switch to a front view and align the limbs vertically. And with the individual points selected, I can use the scale along axis handles to try and make certain parts a little more slender. Alright, let's rotate around to a top view, and I'm going to click on the node in the thigh area to scale it from front to back to give it a little thickness. And I'm not quite clear, based on a sketch, where the actual elbow joint on this creature is, and even in the movie it's a little bit strange. So I'll probably just stick to the sketch for now and make that decision further down the line. I think we've tweaked this enough now so that we have our basic form and we're ready to commit this to a layer. So I'm going to turn my image planes off for the time being. Go back to the curves tool. And I'm going to select the layer I want to apply it to and hit the apply button. You can see it committed. I'll switch to the move tool to continue doing some further tweaking. I'm going to scroll down and click smooth all a few times just to try to smooth the entire object. Still have the move tool selected, so I'll just continue making some slight adjustments here. And I'm also going to down-res this particular layer by caching the layer that I'm in, and 3D Coat will put in its place a lower resolution proxy. And this is 3D Coat's way of stepping down to different subdivision levels, because there are times where you need to step down to a lower resolution version of your particular object so that large-scale editing tools such as the Move tool, Transform, Pose, and things of that sort actually perform much better, because when you try to use large-scale editing tools on an extremely high-resolution object, obviously there's going to be some type of performance penalty. But once you're done editing your lower resolution proxy version, just like you would in other sculpting applications, 3D Coat is going to translate the changes between the low resolution version and the original higher resolution version. So again, it's just 3D Coat's way of handling the same task. And how you achieve it is you go to the left side of the individual layer. When you hover in this area, you'll see either a little hard drive icon or a curved arrow icon. And the curved arrow just shows that that layer is currently cached and you're currently in proxy mode. If you want to determine just what resolution your proxy version will be, then you go to the voxel menu, then under proxy method, in that sub menu you can select what level of subdivision or resolution you're actually going to step down to, or how many levels of reduction you're going to step down to whenever you cache any given layer. You can set hotkeys for that, so it's easy to quickly get in and get out. Just using the shift key to smooth on the fly here. And let's switch to the pose tool. I use the ring selection method. And that will essentially create a loop selection in this particular area. So I'm just going to create a crease by scaling globally first and then scaling along a given axis. I'll click the little handle in order to switch to the move or translate mode. I'll now click the clear selection button, or you could hit the Control D keyboard combination to clear any selection in 3D Coat. I think I'll switch to a sharper brush alpha for smoothing in this area, kind of polish it up a little bit. I switch to the pinch brush. I'm going to switch to a preset here for polishing. And this time I'm going to hit the space bar to bring the tool panel to me and choose the move tool. Typically whenever you're using the move tool, you're making larger scale changes to the surface of your model, so you're going to want to use a softer brush alpha. In this case, when holding down the shift key, I like using that sharp brush alpha for a polishing effect. And obviously it's good for whenever you're working with a pinch brush as well. Let's go back to the pose tool and choose the line selection method this time, and I'll switch to a rotation mode. And I'm using this in order to add a little bit of curvature to this particular talon. Switch back to the move tool. Let's go to the build-up brush. Start sculpting in the thigh area. I'm going to put sculpting on the rear limb on hold for the time being, and we're going to create the secondary wing here behind that limb. So I'll create a new layer, rename it. We're now going to go back to the primitives tool by hitting the space bar, and you can see it leaves in place the last object you worked with. So I'll choose transform whole lattice. Move this back into place. Switch to a bottom view. I'm also going to bring up my image plane. Uncheck transform entire lattice and just start tweaking some of the individual points to reshape it. So just went back to a top view to get a different vantage point. Now to a side view. Choosing to make it a little bit wider than what I have in the sketch. So I think that'll do for now. We're ready to go ahead and commit this to a layer by hitting the apply button, then just select another tool in order to go ahead and inspect the result. Alright, so we have all the basic parts that we need to begin our sculpting phase of the body itself. We'll work on the eyes, teeth, and the tongue later on, but we'll stop right here and pick up in the next video where we'll begin tweaking the secondary wing. So stay tuned, we'll see you then.